I am prepared to relocate to Lisbon, Portugal, if the election goes the way I don't want it to, and I fear that our democracy will be under attack. This is Mike Balaban with another episode of BAMMER Talks. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to focus this week on the subject of friendships, particularly friendships later in life, when according to all evidence and articles that I've read, it becomes much more difficult to make new friends. There are a lot of supposed reasons why. When we get older, we are pretty situated. We've made friends, most of whom we've retained throughout our lifetime, and we just don't have the need or the appetite, certainly to go out and look for new friends. And even when the opportunity is presented to us, we may not, in fact, respond to it or act on it. The other thing is, the older we get, the clearer we are about what we like and what we dislike. And so when you meet someone new, there are likely to be certain things about them that just don't strike you the right way. You just don't really want to make the effort to get closer to them because of the things that rub you the wrong way. So when that happens, it leaves you with narrower choices for making new friends. Now, most people don't need to make new friends older than life. If you've lived in a community for 20, 30, 40 years, you're situated, you presumably got a nice group of friends, it really doesn't matter. But if you move to another location and you're new in town and you don't have a lot of existing connections before you get there, it becomes a real challenge to make meaningful friends. And I found this out, and I'll explain why. And I happen to be more social, very outgoing. Really, I can go into a cocktail party and walk out with several addresses and phone numbers just because I like people and I want to meet them. And I'm very adept at staying in touch with people. I have friends around the world, from the many trips I've taken, the study abroad sabbaticals, living abroad in Japan for a year and a half. I have friends from Shanghai to Sao Paulo to Seattle. And when and if I get lonely or a little down in my life in San Diego where I don't know that many people, I'll pick up the phone or arrange a FaceTime or Zoom session, contact one or more of those friends, and we'll catch up, and I will be reinvigorated. I'll feel happier about my life than I did before I had those interactions. So that's what people do for me. In 2020, after 44 years in New York, with a very established set of friends, I had to move. The way it happened was my partner of 12 years or so and I continued living together after we separated for a few more years, co-owning our New York cooperative apartment. But then he lost his job and decided he wanted to leave New York. It meant he had to sell his portion of the apartment. I looked into buying it from him, but it was pretty expensive and it would have stretched me uncomfortably. So we both decided to sell the entire apartment in January of 20. We had a buyer within a week, a contract signed 2 weeks later with a 10% deposit, and then COVID hit, and all hell broke loose. He ran off to Palm Springs because he was afraid he wasn't going to be able to fly after a certain date, leaving me with the task of shutting down the apartment I lived in for 32 years with all my belongings, finding a place to store them when everything was closed, plotting where I would live after the apartment got sold, and then it got delayed by buyers who refused to pay the price they'd agreed on, and we had a pissing match and ended up having to make a significant concession to close that transaction. But eventually I moved in late 2020 to San Diego, and I did that because New York was dangerous with COVID and very crowded sidewalks, and I decided my brother and his family had been in San Diego for 40 years. That was an apt place for me to move. It was warmer, sunny. I had a family connection there, a group of 8 in my extended family who I would see every week for the next 2 years, thank God, because I really couldn't meet anybody else since I wasn't in their pod and COVID was rampant. So my first 2 years, I knew it would be lonely, and it was. But after COVID began to dissipate, it was difficult to make new friendships. And I tried. I joined various groups, meetup groups, social media groups, and I went to these things, and it just didn't click. And some of that is that I have a New York personality. I'm energetic, intense, talkative, and I'm not chill, which is what San Diegans are. They're very laid back. They want to go to the beach, go hiking, get laid, whatever. But there's not a lot of interest in doing the things that I enjoy, talking about meaningful topics, philosophically, politics, whatever. So I began holding a few what I call salons in my home, where I'd invite people who I thought might like rigorous discussion. And that's helped. But still, it's been a challenge, and it's taken a while. And finally, after 4 years, I'm beginning to feel like I have a local group of friends. I also have to say that I'm at risk of losing them because I am prepared to relocate to Lisbon, Portugal, if the election goes the way I don't want it to, and I fear that our democracy will be under attack. And I've already made arrangements for various bureaucratic requirements so that if I want to, I can move to Portugal. And if that happens, I'll be faced with the same challenge all over again. I know a few people there, none closely. I know others moving there, none closely. I'd be going on my own at 72 to a country where I don't speak the language, but I feel that strongly about the risks that our political system is facing, that if I had to, I would move. And then I would have to go through the same new friendship process again at an advanced age. How has your journey been? Have you found your friendships stable? Do you look to make new friendships in your older age? Are you someone who has also moved in the last 5 years or so like I did and are encountering the kind of problems I have? I have to mention that my following on YouTube is probably an average age of 65 or so, whereas my Instagram following of 28,000 is 45 years and under largely. So I expect to get hopefully a lot of responses from you about your own interactions with friends, making new friendships. Has it been easy? Has it been a challenge? Have you needed to do that? What do you think of this whole argument that making friends later in life is problematic? Thanks for listening and watching. It's Mike Balaban, BAMMER Talks.